What does crime have to do with the holidays? You might think of the holidays as being one of the most wonderful times of the year, but unfortunately, it's also a time where really horrible things can happen.
Yeah, some of the most heartbreaking cases we've covered on Clues unfolded right around the holidays when families should have been together, celebrating, eating, not suddenly facing the unimaginable.
So, what we wanted to do today is we wanted to compile 3 cases that really made us think of the holidays and show that how even during this wonderful season, things can take a devastating turn, but also highlight the clues that helped bring some of these cases to justice.
And if you're new here, this is a great place to start. And make sure you hit subscribe. You don't want to miss an episode. Welcome to the family.
Let's start with a case that captured the attention of the entire country, and it all started on Christmas Eve.
In May 2002, Laci got pregnant, and by that point, Scott was seemingly getting on board. He was attending Lamaze classes with her, going to doctor's appointments, all of the things you would expect a loving, supportive partner to do. But in late 2002, when Laci was around 8 months pregnant, things took a dark turn.
So now we know a little bit more about who Laci was. Let's talk about what was going on in her life in December of 2002. So on December 14th, Laci and Scott were invited to a Christmas party. Laci attended, Scott did not. Scott allegedly had told Laci that he couldn't make it because he was on a business trip. On December 23rd, Laci spent that day running errands. She and Scott went to a doctor's appointment, and she also visited her sister, Amy Rocha, so Scott could go get his haircut. And that evening, she called her mom, Sharon Rocha, to talk about their plans for the next day, which was Christmas Eve. And that's when Laci confirmed that she would be having dinner with her. At some point on December 24th, 2002, Laci disappeared. According to Scott, this is how the day went down. He left the house at 9:30 a.m. And when he left, he said that Laci was watching Martha Stewart, a special on TV. And he said that there was something about lemon meringue on the TV. He remembered that specific detail about what she was watching. And initially, he said that he had gone and played golf that day when he left.
Yeah, and it wasn't like he just told one person he went and played golf. He actually told 4 different people that he played golf that day, but his alibi quickly shifted.
Yeah. So while even Scott's family thought that he was going and playing golf that day, it turned out that he had actually gone to take a boat out on the marina. And there's a few reasons why this is suspicious to me off the bat. So Scott wasn't going to just take any boat out on the marina. He was going to take his boat out on the marina. And according to Scott, his family, including Laci, didn't even know that he had this boat.
So it's safe to assume that none of them had ever been on this boat.
Right. And that's something that I want us to remember as we keep digging into this. So Scott left his home at 9:30, he said, and he went to his warehouse to pick up his boat and to check some emails. He left that warehouse at 11 a.m. and he headed to the marina. Now we know that Scott purchased a boat launch ticket at Berkeley Marina at 12:54 p.m. And we're not really sure how long he spent on the water, but later he left a voicemail for Laci, and that said, quote, "Hey, beautiful, I just left you a message at home. It's 2:15. I'm leaving for Berkeley. I won't be able to get to Vela Farms to get the basket for Papa. I was hoping you would get this message and go out there. I'll see you in a bit, sweetie. Love you. Bye." End quote.
And just so everyone is aware, and again, look at social media if you're more of a visual person, or our YouTube for the picture, Berkeley is over 80 miles away from Modesto. And traffic patterns may have changed, maybe highways, roadways even changed. But when I plugged the 2 locations into Google Maps and searched what traffic would look like on, Christmas Eve of this year, it shows that the drive is around 2.5 hours. We're talking about a 5-hour round trip. And given that he pulled the parking ticket at 12:54 p.m. and then left a voicemail for Laci at 2:15 saying he was headed back, doesn't give you a lot of time to fish. And we also have to consider he was pulling his boat behind his vehicle. And from my experience, hauling, with a trailer, you do even have to drive a little more cautious, a little slower.
Yeah.
So it could have been longer.
And he pulled the ticket for parking at 12:54, but it takes a minute to get into the water. It takes some time to do that. And then he called her at 2:15, so in theory, he pulled his boat out of the water. So it seems like he was in the water for, 30 to 45 minutes?
Not long, especially considering Scott was by himself.
Yeah, right.
Like, it usually is so much nicer if you're working with another person as you're the one backing the boat down the launch and someone then catches it. But he was doing all of this by himself too, which really adds to the complexity of this.
Right, adds to the time it takes. So he made a 5-hour round trip journey to be on the water for about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
On Christmas Eve.
So the Martin family consisted of 6 people. We have the dad, Kenneth, otherwise kind of referred to as Ken.
Yeah.
Ken Martin, age 54. He was born in 1904. He worked at Eccles Electric Home Service. That'll come into play. You'll hear it throughout this case, so important to note that. But Ken really loved Christmas. This whole family did. But Ken would act as Santa Claus for the neighborhood kids. And he even made these like wooden candy cane decorations for his yard, the neighbors' front yards. And this is what actually got the neighborhood street to be referred to as Candy Cane Lane.
Oh, that's cute. There's always like one of those people in every neighborhood. Yeah.
Adorable. And then there's the mom, Barbara Jean Martin. She was 48. She was born in 1910. The pair got married on the 28th of November in 1929. Barbara loved Christmas too. She sent out the family holiday cards.
So let's break down the day of the disappearance. At 10:30 a.m., the morning before the Martins leave for their ill-fated trip, the Evans family stops by with their children. The Evans are actually second cousins of Barbara Martin, and the families would often spend time together. They invited the Martins to have dinner together that evening, the night of December 7th, but Barbara declines. She says that she's going on a day trip to collect Christmas greenery. Barbara doesn't really specify where they're going to drive to, though. She just says that they're going up the highway, and that usually means driving out to the Columbia River Gorge on Highway 30. So around 1 to 2 p.m., the precise time has kind of been debated, but around that time, the family leaves their Portland home in their cream and red 1954 Ford station wagon. About an hour after leaving, they stop for gas at Dean's Chevron service station in the small city of Cascade Locks. Around 3 to 4, the Martins stop at a cafe called the Paradise Snack Bar in Hood River, and that's about 20 miles from Cascade Locks, so they're just continuing down the road. A waitress comes forward as a witness later on and confirms that she did see the family eating a meal here, and then they left about an hour after they had their meal, and they started heading back towards Portland. And that brings us to our very first clue.
So at the end of December 1958, a waitress named Claire York came forward and said that she waited on the family late Sunday afternoon, December 7th, before they disappeared. She said that they arrived from the east in their station wagon, ate hamburgers, fries, and dessert, and left after an hour, headed west towards Portland.
Yeah.
Claire remembered what they ate, what they wore, and even the young girls' hairstyles. And Kaelyn, I know you mentioned this on your episode of Heart Starts Pounding, but the reason why she remembered things so clearly is because she really didn't have any customers that day. Like, the Martin family was kind of all she had.
Yeah, it was pretty empty in the place.
There were, however, 2 men eating at this restaurant at the same time as the Martin family, and Clara said that they left shortly after the family did and headed in the same direction. In one news clipping, Clara puts the time of their departure around 2 p.m., in another, it says 5:30 p.m. And in another, she says it was around 4:15 at dusk.
Yeah, those are all very different times of day.
Yeah.
Which, yeah,
and the
really
fact that
matters in an investigation like this.
And the fact there's 3 different times.
Yeah.
A little confusing. Later, when Detective Graven interviews the staff at Paradise Snack Bar, the owner, Charles Maynard Cody, tells him that the 2 men in the restaurant the same day were ex-cons, Lester Price and Roy Light. They were dining in the restaurant when the Martins were there and left around the same time, between 4:15 and 4:30.
Yeah.
And I want you to remember those names because they are going to come back up a little later. But overall, this clue, the witness at the cafe, it's important for placing the family near Cascade Locks as their last known location.
Right. And so one thing that was super interesting about December 7th is there was a tip that was reported directly to the FBI. There were 2 women, Kelsey and Doris Knutson, some say Knutson, were out for a sightseeing drive on December 7th when they noticed that there was a light-colored station wagon heading west towards Portland from around the area of the Paradise Snack Bar at about 4:30 p.m. A lot of reason to believe that that was the Martin family. And the station wagon caught their eye because it was traveling at a very fast speed, like abnormally fast. And about 20 minutes later, Kelsey and Doris passed an area called Trotter's Point that was near Cascade Locks, and they saw that that same station wagon was pulled over to the side of the road. So it had passed them and then it had pulled over. And reportedly, they saw two people in the front seat very close together. It's not really clear from this part of the report if the two people were Ken and Barbara or if it was just other people. And they didn't know if there were kids in the backseat, but they did say that there were two people in the front sitting very close together. And later that night, the Knutsons were driving and a car with bright headlights pulled up behind them. And eventually, after repeatedly refusing to pass, they said that the car sped off ahead of them. And a few minutes later, when the Knutsons arrived at Cascade Locks, they saw the station wagon pulled over to the side of the road under a bridge. And they reported that there were two young men standing outside of their car talking to the people inside of the station wagon. And that's the last time the Knutsons saw the car. Just days before Christmas, Mary Ann Clibbery was found brutally murdered inside her shop in a quiet Illinois town. It was a horrific scene, and nothing about it made sense.
There was no sign of forced entry, no clear motive, but the truth didn't stay hidden for very long.
So we are opening the case file for the murder of Mary Ann Clibbery. So on Wednesday, December 22nd, 2004, Mary Ann was found dead in Loves Park, Illinois, a suburb of Rockford, at Al Zulo Remodeling Specialists.
A little bit about Mary Ann. Mary Ann Romaine was born on May 21st, 1935. She was one of 5 children from a poor family. She was born in the Chicago projects and then moved to Arkansas, but then moved back to Illinois, to outside of Rockford specifically. And when she moved back, she actually moved to a house that had no hot water. According to one source I found, Mary Ann was married twice and had 5 children.
In late November or early December of 2004, Mary Ann Clibbery decided that she was almost ready to retire. She was experiencing some health issues, some people said, like sleepiness and sickness at work. This was usually after drinking or eating. And we also know, though, that Mary Ann absolutely loved this company she worked at. She would send out Christmas cards to a lot of the suppliers who worked with Al Zulo's every holiday season. She went above and beyond with everything. But then on Wednesday, December 22nd, 2004, at 7:30 in the morning, Mary Ann Clibbery's body was found by Mary Ann's business partner, George Hansen, and another Al Zulo's employee named Randy Baxter. She was laying in the back hallway of the showroom, and she had been beaten with at least 3 severe blows to the back of her head. The office was completely sprayed in her blood, and her purse was taken, and some of the drawers around her were rummaged through, but nothing else of value was really taken from the crime scene.
And that's interesting, and makes sense why investigators then might have suspected that the robbery could be staged.
Yes. So presumably, George and Randy called the police right away, because a few minutes before 8 a.m., George calls Mary Ann's boyfriend, Gene, and he tells him that Mary Ann is dead and there's blood everywhere and that the cops had arrived. An autopsy would go on to determine that Mary Ann did die from the head injuries as a result of a beating or a bludgeoning, and the coroner estimated that her body was actually dead in the office overnight. And unsure if this was really a robbery, like you were saying, authorities wondered if an Al Zulo employee or customer could have committed the crime. And it seems like whoever did this would have been somewhat familiar with the office. If you want to hear the full story on any of these cases, you can search CluesPod on YouTube and watch the full episodes that we've done.
Yeah, all of the links will be in the description. And while you're there, again, subscribe. We drop new episodes every Wednesday. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Every week, we dive into the pieces, both hidden and obvious, behind some of the biggest true crime cases. Subscribe to Clues Pod with Morgan Absher and Kaelyn Moore on YouTube.
And remember, every clue counts.